When someone you love dies, there is a person you have probably never thought about who quietly steps in to take care of everything. They handle the paperwork, the body, the family, the ceremony, and the hundred small details you never see. Today, we're talking to one of those people. Hello, and welcome to What Do You Actually Do? The podcast where we explore the fascinating and often misunderstood jobs people have, and we learn English through real conversation. My name is Alex, and today we're stepping into a world most people only encounter a handful of times in their life. Our guest is Hannah, who has worked as a funeral director in Boston, Massachusetts for the last 15 years. Hannah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Alex. I'm glad to talk about it. People are usually too uncomfortable to ask, so it's nice when they do.
Let's start there, actually. When you tell people at a party that you're a funeral director, what's their reaction?
There are usually two responses. Some people get very quiet and change the subject as fast as they can. The others lean in with about 100 questions. Almost no one is in the middle.
I can see why. So, in simple terms, what does a funeral director actually do?
My job is to take care of a family from the moment their person has passed away until after the service is over. That includes the practical care of the deceased, the body, and also walking the family through every decision they need to make and supporting them emotionally through it.
So, you're caring for the person who has died and the family at the same time.
Exactly. Both at once. People sometimes assume the body is the main thing, but honestly, the family is where most of my work happens. The deceased is in our care, and that part is very procedural. The family is grieving, and that's where things are unpredictable.
Walk me through what happens when you first get a call.
A family calls us, often within hours of someone dying, either at home, in a hospital, or at a hospice. We send a vehicle and a member of staff to bring the deceased into our care. Then we meet with the family, usually the next day. We sit down at our planning table and we start at the beginning: burial or cremation. What kind of service? What music? Who's speaking? Where it's being held? Are there cultural or religious requirements? It can take 2 or 3 hours.
That sounds like a lot to think about while you're grieving.
It is. And that's part of the reason we exist. The family is often in shock. They cannot think straight. We are trained to gently guide them through, one decision at a time, and to never push. If they cannot decide today, we wait until tomorrow.
How does someone end up doing this work? Is it a family business or is there a path?
Both, actually. A lot of funeral directors come from family businesses, third or fourth generation. I'm the first in my family. I went to mortuary school in New England, which is a 2-year associate's degree. And after that, I served a 1-year apprenticeship at a funeral home before I could be licensed. So in total, 3 years of training before I could practice on my own.
Mortuary school. What do you actually learn there?
A bit of everything: anatomy, embalming chemistry, restorative art, which is how to repair a body after trauma so the family can have a viewing, funeral law, grief counseling, business management, because most funeral homes are small businesses. By the end, you have a strange combination of skills. You're part scientist, part counselor, part event planner.
That's an unusual mix. Why did you choose this work?
I was a hospice volunteer in college. I sat with people in their last weeks. I saw families fall apart at the moment of death because they didn't know what to do next. And I saw funeral directors come in and quietly take all of that weight off their shoulders. I wanted to be that person, the one who shows up and makes the worst day of someone's life a little bit easier.
That's beautiful. So, what does a typical week look like for you?
There is no typical week, which is one of the things I love about it. We are on call all the time. A death can happen at 3 a.m. on a Sunday, and we have to be ready. In a normal week, we might handle 4 or 5 families. Each family has multiple meetings, the service itself, and a lot of paperwork. Death certificates alone are a full part-time job.
I had no idea. So, is most of your time with families or with the deceased?
Roughly 70% with families and paperwork, 30% with the deceased. Most people think it's the other way around because of the way the job is portrayed in films.
Let's talk about the embalming side, because I think a lot of people are curious. What does that actually involve?
Embalming is the process of preserving a body so that the family can spend time with their loved one before the burial. We use a chemical solution that replaces the blood and slows decomposition. It allows for an open casket viewing, which for many families is an important part of saying goodbye. It's quiet, careful, respectful work. It usually takes a few hours.
And not everybody gets embalmed.
Right. Embalming is a choice, not a legal requirement in most states. Cremation is becoming more common in the United States, and many families choose to skip embalming entirely. Other families, especially in certain religious traditions, never embalm. We follow the family's wishes.
What's the hardest part of the job for you?
Children, without question. We don't get many infant or child funerals, but when we do, it stays with you for a long time. Watching parents say goodbye to a child is the hardest thing a person can witness. I have my own kids, and on those days I go home and I hug them very tight.
That must be incredibly heavy.
It is. The other hard part is the unpredictability. I have missed birthdays, anniversaries, my own kids' school plays. When a family calls, you go. You cannot say, come back tomorrow. It's a job that demands a lot from your own family.
How do you cope with all of that emotional weight?
My team, we debrief constantly. After every difficult service, we talk about it. A lot of funeral homes have what's called a peer support program, where you check in on each other. I see a therapist regularly, and I exercise. I run almost every morning. I think a lot of funeral directors will tell you they need a physical outlet to balance the emotional weight.
What about the most surprising or rewarding parts?
The gratitude is unbelievable. Families remember the funeral director who helped them, sometimes for the rest of their lives. I get cards every year on the anniversary of certain services, Christmas cookies, photos of grandchildren who were born after their grandparents passed. You become woven into a family's story for a moment, and they remember you.
That's lovely. Do you have a memorable story from your career?
A few. Here's one. We had a service for an elderly gentleman, a war veteran, and his wife wanted to play one specific song at the end of the ceremony, a song they danced to on their wedding day. She couldn't remember the title. She just hummed a few notes for me. That night, I sat at my desk for 2 hours, humming the tune into apps and websites until I found it. It was a 1947 recording. I tracked down a digital version, made sure it played at the service. After the funeral, she hugged me and said it was like he was there with her one more time.
That's such a beautiful detail.
Those moments are why we do this, not the big things, the small ones.
Have you got a funny story too? Because I imagine working around death every day, you have to find humor somewhere.
Oh, plenty. Funeral directors have very dark humor. We have to. Here's a clean one. We were preparing a viewing for an elderly woman, and her husband had brought in her favorite blanket, a bright pink one with cats on it. He insisted she be covered in it during the visitation. The family showed up, took one look at the casket, and absolutely lost it laughing. The grandkids said, she would have hated that. She loved that blanket, but she would have hated being seen in it. It turned the room from sadness into laughter. The husband was a little embarrassed, but the family said it was the most their grandma they'd felt all week. We left the blanket.
That's wonderful. Sometimes the right thing is the slightly wrong thing.
Often, people grieve in unexpected ways. Laughter is one of them.
For someone listening who's thinking, I might be drawn to this work, what would you tell them?
3 things. First, volunteer at a hospice or shadow a funeral director before you commit. The work looks one way from the outside and feels very different on the inside. Make sure you can sit with grief without flinching. Some people can, some can't. Second, get the qualifications properly. Mortuary school, apprenticeship, licensing. There are no shortcuts, and you wouldn't want one. You're handling something deeply important to people. And third, build your support system before you need it. Therapist, exercise, hobbies, friendships outside of work. The job will take from you. You need to have a way to put it back.
Solid advice. Hannah, thank you so much for sharing your work with us today.
Thank you, Alex. It was a pleasure.
That was Hannah, a funeral director from Boston. Now let's review some useful vocabulary from our conversation. Deceased. Deceased is a respectful word for a person who has died. Hannah uses it because it sounds more formal and respectful than other words. Second, embalming. Embalming is the process of preserving a body using chemicals so that family can spend time with their loved one before burial. It's a specialized skill funeral directors learn at mortuary school. Third, cremation. Cremation is the process of burning a body at high temperature, leaving ashes that can be kept or scattered. It's becoming more common around the world. Fourth, viewing. A viewing is a ceremony where family and friends gather to see the deceased one last time before the funeral. It's also called a wake or a visitation in some traditions. And finally, grieving. To be grieving is to be deeply sad after a loss. It's a natural process, and Hannah's work is largely about supporting people who are grieving. And that's it for today's episode of What Do You Actually Do? A huge thank you to Hannah for opening the door to a world most of us never see. Join us next time when we go from quiet rooms to absolute chaos. We're heading to Tornado Alley in Oklahoma to talk to Emily, a professional storm chaser. She drives toward the most dangerous weather on Earth, on purpose. Until then, take care.